How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel. And this is a tutorial for complete beginners. I have done a few tutorials for new to intermediate level players on this channel, but I keep seeing questions about more basic stuff, and a few of commenters have mentioned that even those tutorials were a bit too advanced for them. So here is a tutorial for complete beginners, for gamers who aspire to play EU4. You might already know that this game has a rather steep learning curve, and trust me, we have all been where you are. Hopefully, by the end of this tutorial, you will have a better understanding of some game mechanics. First of all, EU4 is a grand strategy game. If you have some experience with other strategy games, EU4 isn't really an RTS or turn-based strategy, although it's still considered 4X. It's sort of a weird combination of the two. You can play the game as RTS, but you can pause whenever you want. And some game events occur at the end of a day, month, or year in games, so it can be considered sort of turn-based as well. Let's just say it's a different experience when compared to other strategy games. Now, EU4 was launched in 2013, I believe, and since then the devs have added 14 DLCs which changed the gameplay pretty significantly. So if you want to enjoy the game in its current form, you'll have to buy the base game along with all 14 DLCs. It costs a fair amount of money even when on sale. So for this tutorial series, I will start with the base game without any DLCs, then we'll go over each available DLC to see what it adds to the game. So let's get into it. When you start a single player game, you can play as different countries. There's also multiplayer mode, but we won't get into that in this tutorial. Now, if you zoom out on this map, you see all these countries with different colors. Each of them is a playable country. For beginners, you should start with a stronger country. By stronger here, it means bigger country. I recommend starting as either Castile, or Ottomans, or Ming. The game also gives you some options to choose here. You can click on the top left menu and it will show you some interesting nations in that particular region. Some of them give you an option to start at a later date, but again, for beginners, I recommend we start with the earliest possible date, that is November 14th, 1444. Each country has their own set of unique national ideas which gives them certain perks. So in a way, countries are like different factions or civs in a strategy game. However, the countries are not balanced in a way factions are, which means starting as a big country will typically mean easier gameplay, while starting as a smaller country increases the gameplay difficulty significantly. You can also change the game difficulty from the options menu if you want. We'll play this game on normal. You can leave other settings on default for now. For this tutorial, I will select Castile to start. It's one of my favorite nations to play, and you can learn about a lot of different aspects of the game through it. To start a game, you select the nation you want to play as, Castile in this case, and click play. You can either play in normal mode or Iron Man mode. Iron Man mode is where you cannot make multiple saves, and it's also how you get steep achievements. For this tutorial, we'll go with the normal mode. The first screen gives you some historical background on your country, your region, government, and religion. We will skip that for now, but you can read through it if you like. Now we are at the main screen and we see a lot of buttons here. We will go over all of them eventually. First, let's zoom out and see the whole map. This is the same map that we saw earlier, except now some of it is shrouded by terra incognita, which means we haven't explored it yet. So we cannot see large parts of Africa, China, Indian subcontinent, and the Americas. We will explore them eventually. The bottom right part of your screen has the map types. This will come in really handy in game, and they give you a lot of information. The icons here might not be the same for you as mine, as I have changed them to my liking. But you can access all the map types from these 4 buttons. The current map type is political, and this is the map you will use for most of the game. Other common map types you will use are diplomacy, which shows you the alliances, enemies, royal marriages, etc., and religion, which shows you which religions exist in the world. There's another important button in the bottom right menu here called Ledger. We will look at it at a later time. Next, let's take a look at the top left menu. The first number you see here is your money or gold, sometimes also referred as ducats. One of the things you should know about EU4 is that you can get a lot of information if you hover your mouse over something. So here we have 239 gold at the start. Now if we hover our mouse over it, it will give us the details about our net income and expenses. Second one is your manpower. We currently have 13,221 men ready to be recruited to our army. If you mouse over that, it tells you the maximum manpower and how much we gain per month, plus the modifier that affect it. Third is sailors. This number will cap how much navy you can build and have out in the sea. It's not a very important number and beginners don't need to worry too much about it. Next is stability, and we'll cover that later. After that, corruption. You don't need to worry about corruption early game either. It becomes relevant mid game and that's when we'll deal with it. Next up is prestige. Mouse over and it tells you how much prestige you're losing or gaining at this point and what are its effects. It goes from -100 to +100. Higher prestige is better. Next to it is legitimacy, and again, the higher the legitimacy, the better. After that is the power projection, which again, you want it to be high. We will see in a little bit how we can make that happen. Then these small portraits you see, the first one here is merchants. The number below says 0 out of 2, which means you have 2 merchants and none of them are free or idle. Next is colonists, which we don't have any yet. Then diplomats, where all 3 are idle right now. We will send them to do something soon. Then missionaries, which can help you convert provinces to your religion, and both missionaries are idle as well. Then there are these 3 numbers: the administrative, diplomatic, and military power points. These are also called monarch points, and they are very important. Mouse over and we can see how much monarch points we generate every month. We generate a base value and then we get extra from our king or monarch, and so they're called monarch points. So that was a lot of numbers in a small looking menu, and if you didn't follow everything I said, don't worry about it. There are 3 main resources you need to keep an eye on: your gold, your manpower, and your monarch points. Like most strategy games, EU4 is also a resource management game, and those 3 resources are your most precious. If there comes a choice where you need to choose between those 3 resources, monarch points are the most valuable, then manpower, and then gold. There's also this icon here that says Age of Discovery. The game is divided into 4 ages, and it's not really relevant if you're just playing the base game. We will discuss it when we get into the relevant DLC. Now this big crest here is your main in-game menu. This is where you'll manage your country. The second smaller one here is your production menu, where you can build your army, navy, or buildings, and do a couple of other things that as a complete beginner you don't need to worry about just yet. The main menu is where you'll spend a lot of your time, and it can be a bit confusing as it has a lot of tabs. So we'll go through them quickly to get a sense of what we're dealing with here. First tab in the main menu is Court. Here you can see your king, Juan II de Trastamara, who is aged 39. He is middle-aged, as kings usually die around 60 years of age in game, and your heir Enrique, who will become the king once your current king dies. The heir claim is strong, and this is what determines the legitimacy that we saw earlier on top left menu. Claims of average or weak will mean lower legitimacy. Both your king and heir also have stats, which you see here. So your king is 112, which means he is generating 1 admin, 1 diplo, and 1 military monarch point every month. These stats range from 0 to 6 for each category. So clearly this king is below average. And these stats are very important. As I mentioned earlier, monarch points are your most important resource. But sometimes you just get kings with bad stats. It's roll of the dice and you can't do much about it. In case of Castile, you have a fairly below average king, but your heir, who is 000, is literally the worst. This is scripted in game and you will always start with them. Repeat after me: Enrique is the worst. Anyway, below this you see your advisor slots and your monthly monarch point generation. You can hire advisors to increase your monarch point generation, and we'll get to it in a little bit. First, let's look at the second tab here, government. If you mouse over the kingdom, it'll tell you your government rank, which is kingdom in case of Castile, government type, which is monarchy, and what modifiers you get from it. The button next to it is how you can change your government type. Again, if you are a complete beginner, you don't need to worry about it. One thing we can learn here is about cultures. Castilian is our primary culture, and it belongs in the Iberian culture group. You can also see this using the culture map mode. If you click on the Castilian culture, the colored ones all belong to the same culture group. What does having the same or different culture mean in game? It affects the unrest in your provinces, which affects rebels and income generation. Unrest in itself is a big enough topic that I might do a separate guide on it, but basically try to keep unrest as low as possible, and positive unrest is really bad. The next tab is diplomacy, and this is another very important menu that you will see very often in game. This is also the only tab you can view for other countries. There are a lot of things here, so I will point out the main things. We can see the king and heir here again. We can also see our diplomatic relations limit. Right now it says 0 out of 4, which means we can have 4 diplomatic relations. If we have more than 4, it will cost us Diplo Monarch points, which is not good. We can also see our enemies and rivals here. Enemies are the countries that have rivaled us. So here England, Burgundy and France have rivaled us. That means they don't really like us and are more likely to attack us. Now you might have different enemies than mine, as these are randomly generated for each game. Rivals are the countries that we don't like. We haven't set our rivals yet, but we'll get to it in a bit. Below that you will see the current diplomatic relations with some other information. Such as here it says we have a truce with Granada, which means we should not attack Granada until the truce expires in 1448. You can also view other countries' diplomacy screen by right-clicking on them. Let's look at France for example. It will show you their enemies and rivals and any other diplomatic relations they might have. Here it says the France is allied to Provence and they are guaranteeing the independence of Scotland, which means if anyone attacks Scotland, they will come to the rescue. Here you can also see how much that nation likes or dislikes you, which is an important thing. France has set us as rivals, so clearly they don't like us, and their opinion is -75. The opinion ranges from -200 to +200. And like every other number, if you mouse over, you will see the breakdown. We are both Catholics, so that's +25, but they see us as rivals, so that's -100, leading to -75 opinion. Alright, let's get back to our country menu. Next tab is economy. Here you can see all the numbers of your income and expenses. Main thing to see here is your net income, the balance. And the same as real life, we should try to keep it on the green side as much as possible. You can also get loans here if you run out of money. Next tab is trade, and there are a lot of numbers in here. And if you are a complete beginner, you don't need to get into trade details. If you're curious, I have a separate guide for trade mechanics. I will leave a link in the description. Next is technology. This is where you spend your monarch points. Castile starts with level 3 admin tech, level 3 diplo tech, and level 3 military tech. And if we mouse over to this progress bar, it tells us how many points we need to get the next level. We can also see what we will get in the next tech level. A church building for admin tech 4, a marketplace building and some trade range for diplo tech 4, and some tactics and RB morale for military tech 4. There's also this clock icon which will tell you if you're ahead of time or behind on tech level. You will have to pay extra monarch points to tech up if you are ahead of time, and you will pay less monarch points if one of your neighbors gets to the next tech level before you. And as I mentioned earlier, monarch points are your most important resource. So as a rule of thumb, don't tech up too much ahead of time, but at the same time, never lag behind on military tech. Say France techs up to military tech 4 before you, yet you're still at military tech 3. There's high likelihood that they will attack you. And with the military tech level difference, you will lose. There's another button here for institutions. This might warrant a separate guide as well, but in short, game has 7 institutions which spawn at regular intervals in game. Here you see the next institution that will spawn is Renaissance. And if you mouse over to 1450, it will tell you what conditions need to be fulfilled for it to spawn. If an institution spawns in another country, it takes a while for it to spread to your country. And that leads to the institution tech penalty, which increases 1% per year for 50 years. So if the new institution hasn't spread to you, you need more monarch points to tech up, and that means we are wasting those precious monarch points, which is not ideal. There's another important thing here. This bulbs icon is for idea groups. You unlock a new idea group at certain admin tech levels, as you see here. And that brings us to the next tab, ideas. Here you can see your set of national ideas. Most countries have their own unique set of national ideas, and here Castile starts with 2 perks, and you can unlock a new perk for every 3 ideas. Then you get an extra perk for unlocking all the national ideas. These national ideas are separate from idea groups, which are same for all the countries, mostly. It says here we need Admin Tech 5 to unlock the first idea group. If we click on it, you will see all the idea groups available. It is a lot, but it also makes for a lot of different ways to play the game. What ideas you select will depend on which country you are playing and how you want to play it. I will not get into each and every idea group here, but we will cover it in some other guide. Let's check out the next tab here. It's missions. Missions are an excellent way to figure out what we should do next. Mouse over the question mark to see how we can complete a mission, and mouse over here to see what perks we get for completing that mission. The missions with your crest on it are unique to the country you're playing, and you should aim to complete that. After this tab is decisions and policies. You can select certain policies when you have 2 idea groups. As we saw earlier, there are a lot of idea groups, and so there are a lot of policies as well. And I won't get into details of all the policies in this tutorial. Just know that policies are categorized as admin, deploy, and military policy, which means they cost 1 of those monarch points to enact, except the first policy in each category is free. National decisions are something you probably don't need to worry about until mid-game, so we will skip that for now. Next tab is stability and expansion. This one is more relevant during and after wars mostly, so we'll come back to it at a later time when we are at war. Next is religion. So we are Catholic, as is most of the Europe at this time, and we can check that in the religious map mode. We see here, most of the Europe is Catholic. Then there's Orthodox in Eastern Europe and the Russian region, Sunni in the East and the Ottoman Empire and Middle East, some Shia, Ibadi, and Coptic as well. There are more religions in the East that we will see when the map is explored, and there are some pagan religions in the sub-Saharan Africa and Americas like animist and such. Getting back to the religion menu, one of the important things to note here is the religious unity. If it goes below 100%, it leads to unrest, and rebels will spawn in your country. And as we learned earlier, always try to keep the unrest to the minimum. The tolerance also determines unrest in your provinces. If one of your provinces is not Catholic, it will have more unrest, which is calculated by the tolerance of heretics and tolerance of heathens. Heretics are other Christians such as Orthodox and Coptics right now, and there will be Protestant and Reformed after the Reformation spawns around 1500. Heathens are all other non-Christian religion. You can convert to Protestant or Reformed when they spawn using this button. You can also convert to other religion, by the way, but it's not something you need to do as a beginner. If you're curious, you can check out my guide for converting religions. I will leave a link for that in the description as well. Next tab is military. Here you can see the stats for your current army type and your navy type, along with the modifiers that affect military strength. You can also see and recruit generals and admirals here, who are very important during battles. We will go into more detail in a separate guide for military. Next tab is grayed out right now as it's for subjects, and we don't have any subjects at this point. We'll come back to it later. The last tab is estates. As Castile, you have 3 estates: the burghers, clergy, and nobility. They all give unique bonuses if you assign provinces to them. You can play around with them if you want to, but as a complete beginner, you can let them be and don't worry about it at all. One thing you should know is if their influence gets to 100%, bad things happen. Don't let it get to 100%. And that concludes our quick guide of the main menu. Let's look at the map again. One of the first things you should do when you start playing is survey your neighborhood. We'll try to determine who could be your allies and who are our enemies, and who are the friends and enemies of our neighbors. Let's start with Aragon to our east. We can see that they are friendly towards us and have plus 39 opinion of us. It means that they will very likely accept an alliance offer from us. So the question is, do we want Aragon as an ally right now? Are they strong enough to help us out? So they don't seem like a big nation when you see on the map, definitely smaller than us, but when you see the diplomacy screen, we see that they have a junior partner as Naples. Junior partner means that if Aragon goes to war, Naples will join them with all their army and navy. So a combined force of Aragon and Naples seems like a strong enough ally. So we'll send them an alliance offer. To do this, go to the alliance actions, offer alliance, and confirm. They should accept it when we unpause the game. This will also mean we don't need to worry about them attacking us and one of our flanks is safe. Our next big neighbor is Portugal to the west. Their opinion of us is plus 50 and they have a heart next to it, which means they have a friendly attitude towards us as well. Mouse over the plus 50 and we see the modifiers. We are both Catholic and we are historical friends. The historical friends modifier is scripted at the start and only a few nations get them. Portugal are enemies with Morocco, Tunis and Tlemcen and they have rivaled them back. By the way, to find a nation quickly, you can press F and then search a nation from there. So if we want to know where Tunis is, we can use this search feature. Portugal also have a truce with Grenada and they have England as their ally. So Portugal seems like a good candidate for early alliance as well. They are our historical friend and again it secures another flank and we don't need to worry about any attack from that side. We will send them an alliance offer tomorrow as well. We also have a small neighbor to the south, Grenada. Now they are a Sunni nation in a Catholic Iberian Peninsula. They seem like a small target and maybe we should attack them and take their provinces for ourselves. But we have a truce with them till 1448. So let's prepare for war till then. Grenada is going to be our main early game war target. You can also look at rest of our neighbors to see who they are allied to and who are their rivals to get a sense of how the diplomacy stands around you. There is another tiny nation of Navarra next to you. They have just one province, so they are pretty weak. They also have positive opinion of us and they are threatened by us. So we can either ally them and try to vassalize them diplomatically, that is, they will become our subject, or we can attack them and take over them. I say let's try the diplomatic way first, as we already have a war target in Grenada for later. Now we have a sense of who our allies and rivals are in the area. Remember, we still haven't unpaused the game yet. It takes a bit to set up before you start the game, but we are getting close. Only a couple of more things to take care of before we start. First one are these banners you see. They are your in-game notifications, something that you should look out for. The first one says, too few rivals. So we need to set up some rivals. If you don't have enough rivals, you lose power projection, and as I mentioned earlier, having more power projection is pretty good. If you click on the notification, it opens the relevant menu. Here, we can set our rivals. If you click on the rival slot, it will show you the eligible rivals. We will pick 3 rivals from these. For now, let's go for France, Morocco, and Burgundy. If you look at the power projection, it's +1 now, and we will gain some power projection over time slowly. We also get power projection from declaring wars against our rivals and taking provinces from them. Next notification is that we have a free advisor slot. If we click on it, it will take us to the code tab where we can hire advisors who will generate monarch points for us. Hiring these advisors costs gold though. There's an upfront cost like a signing bonus and then a monthly salary. At the start, you should only get level 1 advisors. Their level will decide how many monarch points they generate. So level 1 generates 1 monarch point, level 2 generates 2 monarch points, and so on. So let's select level 1 admin, level 1 diplo, and level 1 military advisor. These advisors also give you some small bonuses that you can see here. Next notification tells us how many truces we currently have and when they are expiring. And the last notification is disputed succession. This is a pretty complex part of the game and I would advise beginner EU4 players to just ignore it for now. Once you have played a few hours and you are curious about the game mechanics, you can look at my guide for personal unions. It's pretty detailed and confusing at times, so I don't advise new players delve too deep into it just yet. Now that we have checked all the notifications, let's quickly look at our current army and navy. We have a stack of 11,000 men here and another 10,000 men there, and we have 18 naval ships in the harbor. To move the army, you simply select them and right-click on the province you want to move them into. Same thing goes for navy. So we know that we want to attack Grenada, but we have truce with them till 1448. So it's unlikely we will be using our army for the next 4 years. One thing we can do during peacetime is decrease the army maintenance. We can do this from the economy tab. Just put the army maintenance slider all the way to the left and it will save us some money. We can do the same for navy as well, but naval maintenance usually isn't that high, and we can use our light ships to protect trade in a trade node. We can do this by selecting all 5 light ships here, then clicking Mission, and Protect Trade, and send them to the Sevilla node. Now finally we are ready to unpause the game, and that brings us to the top right menu. The date is the current date in game. On its right is the pause and pause button, and you can also change the game speed from this plus and minus signs. 5 is the fastest and 1 is the slowest. For first time players, I suggest playing at speed 2 or maybe 3. Remember, you can pause the game whenever you want. There's also the outliner menu here, which gives you information on a number of things. This is a personal preference, but I like to keep mine open so I can see my diplomats, merchants, armies, navies, etc. One thing I'll point out here if you haven't noticed yet, this game doesn't have an end goal. There are no final bosses to beat. The game just runs from 1444 to 1821, and you can decide what you want to do in game. Some people like to conquer as much as they can. Some like to roleplay a specific nation and try to play with historical accuracy. Some go for Steam achievements. The possibilities are endless, and you get to decide what you want from the game. This opens up the game a lot, as there isn't a right or wrong way to play it, but at the same time, new players might feel a little lost on what to do next. What I do here is have a vague end goal in mind. Say world conquest, or have the highest income of all nations in the world, or be the only colonizer in Americas. And once you have played a few years, you can decide what you want from it too. But it's also important to have some short-term goals. For example, in this game, our first goal should be to secure alliances so France or England or Muslim nations in North Africa don't attack us. We have already identified Aragon and Portugal as our potential allies, so let's get that going. At this point, we can unpause the game and let it run for 1 day and pause again. We get a notification that Aragon has accepted our alliance offer, which is great. Now we can send an alliance offer to Portugal as well, and we unpause the game for another day and pause again. By the way, you can pause and unpause game using your spacebar on keyboard as well. Another notification that Portugal has accepted the alliance offer. Excellent. Now we have 2 of our neighbors as allies and we are basically safe from attacks. And that checks off our first short-term goal. Now we need to figure out what to do next. This is where the missions come in very handy. Let's have a look. We have 5 missions available to us. The first one is Discover Caribbeans and is specific to Castile. We will come back to it later when we cover exploration and colonization. The second one says we need to build our army size to force limit. Now let's go to our production interface by clicking on the small icon on top left menu. Here we see land units and mercenaries, and all the way to the bottom is army force limit, which says 21 out of 28. So we currently have 21 army units and we can build up to 28 units. If you build 7 more units, we will fulfill that mission. You can also build over your force limit, but the penalty is that the costs go up exponentially and I wouldn't recommend it right now. Okay, let's get back to the missions and check others out as well. Third mission is that we need to have at least 2 allies. We have them, check, and they need to have at least 150 opinion of us. We can do that too. If we go back to one of our allies, say Aragon, right now their opinion of us is plus 89. We can improve it further by going to Relations Actions and Improve Relations. It's grayed out right now because we can do these diplomatic actions with the country only once a month, so we need to wait a bit for that. Also, you need a diplomat to do these actions. We can look at the current status of all our diplomats in the outliner. So one of them is free, the other 2 are returning in 1 and 3 days. This is because when we sent our alliance offers to Aragon and Portugal, it uses these diplomats. All diplomats in game have travel time while returning from the task. They will instantly teleport to wherever we want to send them, but they take some time to come back, and this time is dependent on how far the country is from yours. Alright, getting back to missions. So we can fulfill that mission too, just need to wait a little bit. Fourth mission is where we need to increase our income by a sizable amount. This will happen organically over time, so we'll just let it be for now. The fifth mission is also specific to Castile. This is the Reconquista mission. Reconquista has actual historical roots where Spain conquered Granada in the name of Christianity. They evicted all the Jews and force converted rest of the Muslim population to Catholic, just usual European Middle Age stuff. So to complete this mission, we need to build our army size to force limit, build our navy size to force limit, and have at least 60% manpower and have a general. And if we complete the mission, we get bonus to Army and Navy morale for 15 years, plus we get permanent claims on the Upper Andalusia area. Okay, so let's see if we can complete the mission. So we can definitely build our army to force limit. We saw that in the earlier mission. Similarly, we can also build our navy. We can get the manpower to 60% too. And if we complete that, we'll get morale bonus, which is great as morale is very important in battles. And we get claims on Upper Andalusia area. Let's see where this Upper Andalusia area is. You can use the area map in geographical maps to find it. Or you can press F and type in and it will take you to the Upper Andalusia area. So very conveniently, it's where Granada is. Now let's see what claims are. We need claims before we can attack any nation for the most part. Claims are basically falsified documents that our diplomats are creating. For example, if we want to go to war with Granada, we need a CB or casus belli. That is, we need to justify our war to the world. So we don't seem like a loony, greedy person. Easiest way to get a CB is by getting claims. To get a claim, we right click on the target country, then go to covert actions and build spy network. This action uses a diplomat and he will build a spy network in the target country. We need 20 spy network to get a claim to a province, and this province needs to be adjacent to one of our provinces. So once we have 20 spy network, our diplomat will forge a document saying the province of Granada is rightfully ours, and then we can attack Granada to get it back. What this last mission will do is give us claims on all 3 provinces of Granada for free. So we don't need to wait for spy network to build because building spy network takes a while. So it seems like this mission is really great for us. Let's see how we can fulfill the mission criteria. We already know we can build army to force limit from the production interface. However, building new army regiments requires money and manpower. Building one regiment will take off 1,000 manpower from our manpower pool. So to fulfill the mission criteria, we also need to keep the manpower at 60%, and since it only regenerates 240 per month, it's going to take a while. 60% of total manpower we have, that's 25,596, is 15,357, and that's the manpower number we need to get the mission criteria. Now we can just build 7 army regiments, which will bring down the current manpower to about 6,000, and then we wait till the manpower is at 60%. Or we can play it a bit smart. Here's what I recommend. Build 4 regiments for now, so when you are in the production interface, click on the infantry button in the land unit side, then click on 4 different provinces to start producing 4 new army regiments. And we will get the rest 3 from mercenaries. Mercenaries are hired help that cost a significant amount of money, but they don't use our manpower. They are rather expensive to recruit and maintain, but as Castile, we are fairly rich and we can afford a few at the start. We will recruit them right before we go to war, so we are not paying for them while they sit idle. Alright, so we know we will get to the army size force limit and manpower is recovering on its own. That leaves the navy size. You can recruit more navy as well from the production interface. Just click on the navy units tab, and down there we see we are at 18 out of 19 navy force limit. So we just need to build one more ship. We can build 4 different kinds of ships. First one is the heavy ship. It costs a lot of money to buy and maintain, and we don't really need that right now. The second ship is the light ship, which is cheaper and also helps with the trade. Third one is galley, which has bonus when fighting in inland seas like the Mediterranean. And the fourth one is a transport ship that can ferry your armies across the water. So for now, let's just build a light ship, as it will also get us some income from trade. So we select the light ship and then click on one of the coastal provinces, and that's that. Now we just wait for the ship and army to build and manpower to recover to 60%, then we can decide when to attack Granada. We also need to take care of the small nation of Navarra, so let's send them an alliance offer for now. Now when you unpause and let the game run, you will get more notifications, like these ones where Portugal and Aragon are asking for royal marriages with our country. Since we like them and consider them long-term allies, we will accept. You can also send these royal marriages proposals to other countries from the dynastic menu. But remember, you only have 4 diplomatic relations limit, and we are already at 3 out of 4. Another thing you can do to save money is we can mothball forts. We can do this by going to the military tab and clicking this button. Mothballing forts means they are working at a bare minimum maintenance and thus cost us less. As soon as we go to war, they will automatically be raised to full maintenance again. Now we can just sit idle and let the game run till we get to 60% manpower. So let's keep an eye on that. Also, in the meantime, make sure your diplomats are busy all the time, improving relations with your allies and neighbors who aren't your rivals. You can also use them to improve relations with the Pope. As a Catholic nation, you can interact with the Pope to get some perks. If you click on this icon here, it will open the papacy menu. On the right side of it are the perks we can get. These require 50 or 100 papal influence, and we get papal influence periodically depending on how many cardinals we have, which is mostly out of our control, and Pope's opinion of you, which we can control somewhat by improving relations with them. Also, a quick reminder about Navarra, since we are trying to get them as a subject. If we right click on Navarra and then go to influence actions, we see an option for offer vassalization. Right now it's grayed out because we haven't fulfilled the criteria yet. We can mouse over and see what the criteria is. So we have a military alliance with them, check. They don't have 190 opinion of us yet, so we need to take care of that. And they are at peace. So if we keep improving relations with them, we can get their opinion to 190 and then we can offer vassalization and they will become our subject. So what I will do after this is run the game at my own pace, and then in the next tutorial we'll start the Reconquista so we can get some basic understandings of how war mechanics work. Hopefully you got something out of this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments and I will try to answer them the best I can. As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.